Hi, welcome to the Shelly Studio. Today I am doing a video hop with the Art Joy of Sharing Facebook group. A bunch of artists got together and to do this hop, and their links will be in the description box below. The theme is tribal, so they just asked us to create art using that word as a jumping off point. So this is my version of it. Now this part right here I did long before the prompt. I had some heavy gesso and I just covered, I believe that's watercolor paper with it, and once I got it nice and smooth, I just scribbled some, what they call it, asemic writing or whatever. No real words. There might have been something in my head when I scribbled it, but it's been a few months since I scribbled that. And then I just set it aside to dry, and just sat there for a long time, and when this prompt come up, I decided this would be a good time to use that particular piece of paper with texture paste on it. And I did originally, when I did it, I did want to use it in jelly printing because I love me some jelly printing. And so I'm just going to cover the whole surface with color from my jelly print plate. If you'd like the colors, I can list them in the description box below. After I do the voiceover, because I can't remember what all colors I used, I was going for earthy browns and stuff like that. And there's what I have. I decided there's way too much white showing, so I am taking my golden quinacridone Nico Azo Gold. This was a little sample bottle, and I'm trying to use it very sparingly. I should go buy me, a real size one. Maybe an extra large, because I love this color so much. I don't know why, but I just do. I think it's so pretty. So I'm just using a super floppy brush, and some water to really get that to move around, and just fill in all that extra white. Not where I scratched with the pencil, with the back of the paintbrush, but this surface, if that makes sense, hopefully. Alright, so we want to add a little bit more to my page for the background, so I'm using another stencil, and we're just going to get that. It's very tribal looking. I can't remember the name of it. It might actually be tribal. Or medicine ring, I think. It came from iStencils. It's not a Patty Tolly Parrish stencil, but it's under her. I can't think of the other artist that... I'm so not full of information today. Anyway, I'll try to remember to get the name of that too. Oh, so many things to remember. And yes, the back of my pieces always end up messy. I don't know how people have pristine backs on their things, because I'm always messy. Just trying to decide where I want that texture. And the texture, the print blocks I've been using, I actually ordered them from Etsy, and got them ordered right as this whole Corona thing happened, and didn't get them for months because they came from India, and India shut everything down, post offices included, and so it sat in the post office for months. Interesting. There we go. And I know that because the Etsy store owner called or sent me a message and let me know that that was happening, because she'd already taken it to the post office, and so she knew that was happening. Now this one is a handmade stencil. I'm thinking I want to get it. I use it in quite a few things. I just really like it for some reason. And I'm thinking of getting that made. I I think there's somebody on Etsy that will make your stencils. I've redrawn it in black and white, but it doesn't scan very well, so I don't know. I'll have to work on that. If you have any ideas or suggestions of where to have stencils made, let me know. Alright. I'm just gonna... Oh yes, I wanted some gold. So I'm just using that again. And it's so dry here that the gold, unless you add other paint to it, it really doesn't come up very well. It dries super fast. And you can see it a little bit, but it's not very noticeable. See what I'm saying? Okay. So I'm going to add my little homemade stencil here. And this is actually just on copy paper. I wasn't intending to save this stencil forever, but I liked it so well, I've tried to be really careful. And I figure the more paint layers, the better, right? So, thinking of tribal, I live in Utah, and, you know, the tribes, I guess, would be Native Americans. So, that is kind of my theme, I think. And thinking of petroglyphs and pictographs, the rock paintings, cliff paintings, that you can find around here. Here's another stencil, homemade. I just needed something extra. Needed to add some light back in. So, I looked up pictographs. And I believe the ones I end up using for this are pictographs and not petroglyphs. One is painted on the rock and one's carved into the rock, I believe, is the difference. And these are from the Fremont Indian pictograph site in Utah. They were building a highway and found these, and so they've turned it into a state park or a monument, so that they are protected and you can go see them. Really nice because they're all in one place and you can just walk around and see them. Anyway, so that's where my motivation for this is coming from. So does that look like a rock wall with lots of painting on it? Kinda. Okay, so I decided it needs a bit of a contrast. And at this point I was starting to think about focal point, and I was stamping this block onto tissue, and I was thinking I was going to collage that on. But I decided it was really too light and it was tearing. I was having a hard time. Like, why don't I just stamp it directly on? So I do one little corner and then I decide, yeah, I kind of like it. It's not a perfect stamp, so I just do a little bit around the edges. And then decide to use what's remaining on there to clean off my plate. And I really like the results because it pulls up the gold and some of that other stuff. It did tear the paper a little bit, but I set that aside and decide that I'm going to use my favorite homemade stencil. It's getting a little warped. And stencil the blue directly onto the piece. Trying to hold that into place since my little spiral part is starting to smush together somehow. And there we have it. But I decided that wasn't enough of a focal point. I really needed a focal point. So I am taking some poor man's chipboard, and I'm going to take this cleanup print that I created and glue it onto there so that it has some stiffness, because that is just copy paper. And I'm going to make my focal element with this cleanup print. So I'm just using some Yoo-Hoo glue stick. I'm just double checking all the edges. Somehow the corners tend to not have enough glue on them. Alright, that all smoothed out. Should wait for it to dry and then trim it out. I don't know if you noticed while I was stenciling onto my jelly print that the stencil was not sliding around even when I wasn't holding it, and I'm talking about the real stencils, not my fake one. That's because I was too impatient to wait for it to dry, and it would just stick to the paint. Not the way to do things. You should wait for things to dry, because that could have resulted in the paint already down peeling off on the stencil. So the stencil was crooked, and I couldn't figure out why it measured correctly and was still crooked. But I use it anyway, so I won't point out that, yes, it looks a little crooked no matter what. I have a little extra we can play with. So here's the idea, is to have these 3 images on top. And I'm just going to go around and get rid of the white and do a little shading on the edges. Because we all like a little shading on the edges, right? Decided it wasn't going dark enough, so I pulled out a marker just to really get those edges dark. And there we go. So now I'm going to, I'm using that for practice, just to make sure this will stick. Seems to show up okay. Alright, so now I'm going to draw my, you can see the picture on my phone. It says petroglyphs. I guess it could be carved out of the rock rather than painted on. It is lighter, so I can't remember. That particular scene has a name, but I really liked it, all of them in a row like that, and that kind of inspired doing the 3 across, just to have kind of the row of figures. Anyway. And it's kind of nice that they're kind of crude, rustic looking, so makes them not too hard to create something similar. Not exact, just similar in style, depending on your skill level, or my skill level. Decided he needed to be a tall guy, so he's having a long body. Or he's got a long outfit on, something. I decided to give him a similar headdress to the first one. Yeah. Alright. So there's my 3 guys. Deciding where they're going to go. If I want them staggered or straight in a line, I think I decide in a straight line is the best. I also decided to shade the edges, and I'm just using a charcoal pencil. I'm just smearing it around the edges. I just like the look it gives. And I've run out of things to say, so don't forget, not that I'm done yet, but don't forget to check the links below, see what other people are doing too. If you're not a subscriber to my channel, think about subscribing. If you like what you see, give me a thumbs up. Alright, so I've got some 3D foam squares. I thought maybe it would be nice to have them stick out just a little bit. And it is very slight that they stick out. But I do like the way it looks. If I was really worried, I would probably paint the back of this black. But I don't think you really see it. Yeah, you don't really see the back of it. Even if you got to the side, you don't see any of the white. And I'm using my yardstick to get things centered. And I think once I get this done, I look at it for a few days and decide my figures need more. Oh, but before I do that, I decide I need to enhance some stuff in the background. So I'm pulling out my Faber-Castell artist pens. And I'm not sure that actually doing this makes that color stand out brighter or not. Could be subconscious. And this one is just a brown Sharpie, trying to define some of the edges on the, I'm calling it a medicine wheel. I think that's what it reminds me of. Or Mayan calendar, going with medicine wheel because that's more Native American. I think that helped it stand out a little bit. What do you think? Maybe? So that it doesn't disappear completely. And now I pull out my quinacridone Nickel Azo Gold again and fill in the spaces on my painting that I did not make completely black, thinking they needed to be more solid. And I didn't want them black, so I thought that worked well because it goes with the background. And then here's a few days later, after staring at it for a few days and deciding it needs some, a few, I don't know, touches, finishing touches. And I don't know why my Posca pens don't work as well as other people's Posca pens, but they don't. So I was trying to do the sun pattern on this guy. And I think I decided it was too much, like way too much white. So I just pull out a baby wipe and wipe that off. And then we're just going to go with the spiral. better. That's better. Okay, so now they have a little bit of spark. And of course, when I've got that out, I decide to emphasize some of those lines that I carved in to the gesso in the beginning, even though they don't really say anything. And like I said, I'll have a few close-ups so you can see the texture close-up at the end. And I hope you liked this video. If you did, please leave me a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and if you'd like to see more from me, please subscribe. Thanks for watching.